Thank you. A quorum is now present. We'll begin this morning with an invocation by City Clerk Fuentes, followed by a land acknowledgement and the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Whitburn.
The other part of it, as long as you're going to be in closed session, we still don't have a public understanding of how footnote 7 happened. And this is, we have all the same executives at DSD, all the same executives at the planning department. This is a knowable fact as to how this came to be. And we'd like to use the closed session, if possible, to pressure the city to come clean on how this happened. Thank you.
On January 28th, Councilmember Henry Foster was responding to an immediate need for action, which came to the attention of the council and to the staff after the regular posting of the City Council agenda for January 28th, namely the dangerous density infill of bonus ADUs in the Encanto community. Councilmember Foster acted in accordance with the Brown Act, as this is permissible for him to request city staff to report back to the council at subsequent meetings and to ask staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda according to section 54954.2A of the Brown Act. As a resident of Encanto, I believe Councilmember Foster's actions again were in alignment to the Brown Act, as he determined that there was a need for an immediate action which could not reasonably wait for the next regularly scheduled meeting, as our community is facing unprecedented, dangerous density infill in an extremely high fire hazard zone. In light of the recent fires both in LA and in San Diego, this is a matter which required immediate action, which came to the attention of the staff after the regular agenda had been posting according to section 54954.2B2. On January 28th, the City Council heard statements from residents of Encanto that mentioned the impact of the massive ADU complexes proposed in our neighborhood during public comment for the repeal of footnote 7, as both of these illegally building policies are affecting our neighborhood. According to the section 5494.3A of the Brown Act, our City Council was legally able to briefly discuss this matter without taking action for or against it, as the urgent request came during this meeting without violating the Brown Act. Councilmember Foster and the rest of the City Council acted in accordance with the Brown Act on January 28th when they voted to return within 60 days.
I'm not a lawyer. However, I believe that Henry Foster's motion related to rescinding footnote 7 and rolling back the bonus ADU program to state law requirements is not a violation of the Brown Act. I refer you to section 5495.4.2A3, which states, a member of a legislative body or the body itself, subject to rules or procedures of the legislative body, may provide a reference to staff or other resources for factual information, request staff to report back to a body at a subsequent meeting concerning any matter, and take action to direct staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. That is exactly what Councilmember Foster did. Councilmember Foster and the City Council did not take any action on the bonus ADU program other than to request staff to report back to the body at a subsequent meeting concerning the bonus ADU program. This was not an action item, but rather a request to staff. I would also like to bring your attention to the fact that there are 2 bonus ADU projects coming down the pike in Pacific Beach. One of them includes 140 bonus ADUs on a single parcel, and the other is 126. They are both in Pacific Beach. I think this program is out of control. If these were permitted as the apartment complexes they are, the builder would have to pay enormous amounts of money, in the millions of dollars, for diffs. Instead, the city will get nothing, and the infrastructure deficit will continue to grow, compounding our budget deficit. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that concluding comments. I am here on behalf of the residents of Encanto and all residents of the city of San Diego. I believe that Henry Foster's motion on January 28th to rescind footnote 7 and to look at removing the city's ADU bonus program is not a violation of the Brown Act. Furthermore, I urge the City Council to adopt an emergency moratorium on the ADU bonus program until a full analysis of it takes place. In conclusion, I ask who among you would welcome a 10, 15, 17, 20, or 43-unit apartment project to be built next door to you with no parking and not paying any development impact fees? Thank you.
I went to the 2003 Cedar fires. I was a property manager at the time. I lost 150 homes in the clubhouse. It was horrific. I cried on the phones with my homeowners. I had evacuees staying at my house. Goats. Goats eat everything. They are the best garbage eaters there are. They eat all the rubbish, all the trees, all the bushes. I mean, they will do, you can rent them. We have goat farms all over San Diego. And it's important. It's really important to keep your community safe. And I know from that loss what I went through with those homeowners. And yes, unfortunately, my homeowners did not have enough insurance to cover what they had added onto their homes, their amenities and their additions, so they only got what they were covered for. And they suffered great losses. But we did rebuild that community within a year because I was head of a special architectural department. And we passed it through the city with a quickness. But from that knowledge, goats. Goats are a very good remedy to eating brush and clearing, however many feet away, yards away you want from any housing development. Thank you.
I want to point out that, we talked about this on Friday about whether or not, as an organization, we should chat about what we've done by creating ordinances that move people into areas where they should not be living. And I think it's fair, since you brought up the fact that you work with the Homeless Services and Strategy Department, to point out that many of the people that are living in our riverbeds and in our canyons and on our freeways were not living there a year and a half ago. They were not creating a fire risk a year and a half ago as a result of their living there. And frankly, they didn't have to light a fire to cook dinner or to stay warm because they were in a protected environment, our downtown and other neighborhoods like that. So we have made a decision that we said was going to create a result. And the result is we've got more fires. Related to encampments or not, arson or not, that is what's happening. So we ask politely that you rescind this ordinance and allow people to live at least closer to environments where they're intended to live and not force them into dangerous situations where these gentlemen have to respond. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very important to be prepared for fires, and I'm finding that you guys talk about stuff like people are always going to be listening to these meetings, or just be privy to the apps that you are wanting them to look into if there was some kind of an emergency. But I think you guys need to really think about doing town halls, which I've told the county and Sandag regarding this preparedness, because I don't think that people are as privy to the information that you are sharing as you think. And I think it's very important that people know, especially if they don't have a phone, like say your phone isn't working when an emergency takes place, or someone just doesn't have a cell phone in general, they don't engage in that kind of technology. We need to make sure that especially like the elderly population and even younger kids are going to know what to do in a situation that they find themselves in where they're going to have to evacuate or whatever it is. And, I think that you guys could do that, and I think it would behoove you to do that so that people feel safe and that they're as much as possible prepared for something that comes down the pipe. And when we're talking about using the same water as the drinking supply, You know, I don't understand. I mean, the boats are fitted to be able to go into the ocean. You guys could go use ocean water, even if you had to rinse out the equipment. If you had to do it, I think that if we're, concerned about, our water and stuff, that we shouldn't be taking water and using it to fight fires when there's an ocean out there that can be accessed very easily, and it's sustainable because it will continue to be something that you can use for that. And when you guys don't look into the chemtrails and the nanoparticulates that are nanothermite that's sprayed on our sky, that's going to make a fire ignite further and faster than it ever could. And we need to be mindful
Thank
of
you. Your
that.
time has concluded.
Can you please reiterate for the public what they should not do when there's a fire, which is flying a drone up? Can you tell us about the drone incidents that have happened?
Yeah, I can tell you at least with the last 3 incidents that we had here in San Diego, all 3 of them I had to down my aircraft for about 20 minutes, and that was because drones were in the air. If you look at the Palisades fire where that drone hit the scooper, they got lucky where it hit the scooper where it did on that edge of the wing, took it out, they landed, they were able to do it. What the public doesn't realize out there is that as small as they think that drone might be, as minimal as they think it might be, it hits the rotor blade of my helicopter, it's going down. 100% that copter's going down. So I ask the public out there, do not fly your drones. We have a policy throughout the state. We have a policy that all fixed wing and helicopters will be downed once we see a drone in the air until that drone disappears. So I just ask the public to not do so. In the Rancho Bernardo fire, it cost even more time because of the fact as we were flying out the burn victim, we had to have that helicopter sit on the road for 25 minutes before we could fly them out because we had a drone in the air. So I just ask, do not put drones in the air. Thanks for bringing that up.
One of the most impactful stories that I heard of the many, many tragic stories from LA was a father who refused to leave his son who was in, if I could have 3 minutes, Council President, who was not mobile. And I mean, it's as sad as it possibly gets. He refused to leave his son couldn't leave, and they both perished. What do we do as a city to track where folks are who might have mobility issues so that we know who's going to need the most help to get out, so that we can do everything we can to provide them the assistance necessary when they need more, when they can't physically themselves pick up and go? And I think if you were to map it out, I actually think that our senior populations tend to actually live in more fire risk areas. And so this becomes even more important, I think, as we think about the response, the evacuation response and capabilities of our city. So yeah, what are we doing to map that out, to make sure that folks have what they need, that we know who needs more and are able to respond to that to the extent possible?
So go ahead, Cap.
Yeah, I'll touch on part of it. One part is that I know that we can work with SDG&E because they'll have a list of those particular residences that have a special need. They can give that to us in an emergency, so we recognize an area, we can use that as a resource. I can't stress enough the Genesis application. One thing that it does provide for citizens is it doesn't just, you can have it set alerts, not just to your own location, but if I have a family member that I know, maybe it's a temporary mobility issue. Normally they can take care of themselves, but they might be facing a temporary situation. I can add their location to my notification. So if I have a loved one who's being affected by a fire that I may not even know about, I'll get notified. And so I can make sure that first responders know that, hey, I've got someone there that you need to double check on. And then as law enforcement, we're going to go door to door whenever, especially in those areas where we know it's very dense area. We're going to door to door as much as we possibly can. Those are just some of the things. I'll let the chief talk about something else.
Thank you, Captain.
Yeah, so agreeing with the captain here is that we actually have what are called WUI plans, and that's for your 65 plus communities that we have mapped out. Those are in our iPads, those are on our paper drawings and everything else that we have in between there. So those areas, we use those basically just like we would a school. They're considered a high risk area for us with those communities up by Calderwood up there with the 65 plus communities in there. For myself, I have the ability to send in a strike team if I need to cover that area so we can shelter in place. I can send in a strike team of ambulances because it's considered a high-risk area for us, too, to evacuate those people. You saw that in the LA fires, too, where they started sending in people like that. One of the things that's important, too, is like the captain was talking about through there, is letting us know. If you looked at the Mission Valley fire, there was twice where we had priority traffic in the Mission Valley fire because individuals said they could not get out of their house, that they were non-ambulatory. We immediately sent an engine to that house with San Diego PD to get them out of that house and away from the situation. So our 911 call center, as that call is going in, the great part with it is that they're continually updating us too if people are calling in and letting us know that they can't move. We had an individual that fell at the Mission Valley fire too, could not get back up, same thing. Sent a team in there, got them back out. It's very dynamic, changes all the time, but some of those are some of the other things that we look at also.
If I may, council member, there's a proactive component to this too. So thinking about the elderly population that might be in like a, assisted facility, there's staff there. They have emergency response plan likened to a fire drill. So hopefully they have some prepared, alternative contingency plans. But a lot of the time, a plan is a plan. We prepare for the worst and hope for the best is one of the things that we say. So there's additional layers there that we encourage people to get involved with, and we kind of review those plans when we do inspections as well.
Yeah, thank you. I think, partnership with the Fire Safe Councils to help them get this information out to the neighborhoods could be really valuable, making sure that folks are, who might not be as familiar or comfortable with apps, some instruction and assistance in downloading those apps and learning how to use them could be really valuable. Thank you for that.
The number of encampment fires that threaten our neighborhoods is the very reason why we ensured that the unsafe camping ordinance prohibited camping in canyons and other open space areas. So don't try to tell people that encampment fires became an issue in 2023. People who live near the canyons and open spaces in our city have been dealing with encampment fires for years. And the encampment fires continue. Several of the fires we had in San Diego 3 weeks ago are believed to have started in encampments. There were fires all around the city. Rancho Bernardo had the center fire that started in an encampment and forced evacuations. The fire near San Diego Mission Road in Mission Valley started near an encampment. The Friars Fire near Fashion Valley caused home damage. It started in an encampment. Near La Jolla, the Gilman Fire was believed to have started in an encampment. That fire last October, Montezuma Road was believed to have started in an encampment. Over the years, we've had encampment fires in Rose Canyon and Troyes Creek and near the border. Fires starting in encampments are a real risk to our neighborhoods citywide. I think this is obvious, but Chief Tosca, let me confirm with you for the record, an effective way to reduce the fire risk to San Diego neighborhoods would be to reduce the number of people who are camping outdoors in nearby canyons and open spaces, correct?
Correct.
So to reduce the fire risk to our neighborhoods, we need to reduce the number of people living in canyons and open spaces. But to do that, we need to give people somewhere else to go. Right now, we often don't have anywhere else for people to go. Our shelters are full. Often when people want a shelter bed, we turn them away. So they live in canyons and open spaces. If we don't want people living in our canyons and open spaces, if we want to reduce the fire risk to our neighborhoods, then we need more shelter beds. That is why, when we get to the next item on today's agenda, which is about exploring potential shelter opportunities, I asked the community to please support the city moving forward with urgency to add shelter beds. Not at Hope and Vine, that's off the table. But we have to get moving on something. We must make progress today. Thank you, Council President.
I am here in opposition of the shelter proposal for a couple specific reasons. First, let me start by saying I'm an ardent supporter of Housing First. I believe housing ends homelessness completely. The reason that I'm opposed to the current shelter proposals is the cost and the timeline specifically. Councilmember Whitburn, you talked about how it's urgent that we do this. 48 months isn't urgent. 46 months isn't urgent. What I'm encouraging the council to do is to actually look at the cost-benefit analysis and the ROI on this option. Part of what we do in affordable housing is we build light-touch infill affordable housing. And that is something that's not currently funded by any grants, by the city, by the county, by anything. We currently build at $200,000 per unit. And in the Housing Disruptor Collaborative, we put up 50%
Thank you
of
for
our-
that concluding comment. I understand shelter is really important at this time because we have no more vouchers. So my advice is the smaller the shelter, the better it is. No more than 100 people in one shelter. You're dealing with very traumatized people, which traumatizes staff, which burns them out. They quit, they have to be replaced. It's a vicious cycle. I stayed in the smallest shelter there was, 126 people. And I got to know staff real well, and it worked out great for me. But if you go over that amount, it's just a ticking time bomb. I'm sorry. I could not be in a shelter with 300 plus people and all their different personalities and all their different traumas and all the different staff members, et cetera, to deal with. It's not, you got to give people what they need. And that meets their individual needs. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
The average stay is 159 days, 249 days. And by the way, thank you for the report and all the hard work. I'm sorry I didn't start with that. At $100 a day, which I'm not sure where the average cost came from because that's not the numbers that we used to get from the Housing Commission, we're looking at $15,000 to $25,000 to put somebody in a shelter. All right? And when we go to the next slide, let's look at our failure rate in permanent supportive housing. It's almost 20%, if not more. And we don't have data on a whole lot of people. Now, why would you leave permanent supportive housing? It's essentially paid for no matter what your income level is. We have the same issue with rapid rehousing. Actually, I have the wrong data set in there. Rapid rehousing failure rates are even higher. And really, like, why are we focusing on shelters? I do not understand this. And I'd like to counter Mr. Whitburn's comment earlier. We are pushing people into fire-prone areas. There may be the same amount of fires, but they're more dangerous for our population. All right? And we're killing our people by pushing them out of services and away from downtown areas. So, and we don't have solutions, and we will never build enough shelters. Never. We spend $60 million a year on services that are other than housing and less than 10 on housing. When are we going to get this right? All right? We need to focus on, last slide, please. We need to get rid of these ordinances, stop towing people's residences of last resort. We need to focus on housing retention, our program effectiveness. We need to get people through the system more effectively, make the system more efficient, and if we really care about people, we need to address the disability violations that are going on. We are not even close to applying state laws that are required to protect people with disabilities in this environment, which, by the way, is over 90% of our population.
Set aside for a moment those who don't want shelter, and there are some of those. These are people who want a shelter bed. These are people who are living outdoors, who want to come indoors, and who are asking the city for shelter. And 9 times out of 10, we say no. We tell them our shelter beds are full, and we turn them away to continue living outdoors. Shame on us. And as horrendous as it is from a humanitarian perspective for these individuals forced to live outdoors, it is also a huge public safety risk. In the previous agenda item, we heard that several of the fires 3 weeks ago that threatened neighborhoods and forced evacuations started in homeless encampments. The risk of encampment fires is not going away on its own. They have been a persistent danger. As far back as 2018, we were having hundreds of encampment fires a year, and they continue today. There is a clear and obvious danger of a fire starting in a homeless encampment and burning right through one of our neighborhoods. And if that ever happens, I pray that it isn't started by someone who came to us asking for a shelter bed and who we sent away to continue living outdoors. At the very least, we have to make sure that anyone living outdoors who wants to come indoors can leave their encampment and come into a shelter. And to do that, we need more shelter beds. We must act with urgency. We must make progress on this. So again, I ask the community, as we narrow down this list today, please support the city in moving forward with one or more of these options. I too want to thank our city staff for reviewing all the sites that were presented, for recommending 3 of the sites as options, and for providing us with the list of all the sites that you are not recommending. All 3 of the recommended sites are in my district. That's fine. And I looked at the sites in my district that you did not recommend, and none of them looked like good options to me either. So let me touch on the 3 recommended sites. The first is the City Operations Building across the street from the parkade over here. It also houses Fire Station number 1. I would prefer either of the other recommended sites over this one. That's because this part of downtown is ripe for revitalization. Look at everything that's going on in this area. On this side of the City Operations Building, the Prebys Foundation is generously studying how these civic center blocks might be reimagined in a way that preserves the Civic Theater and benefits the city. On the other side of the City Operations Building, on the other side of Front Street, you've got a residential tower under construction with a Whole Foods going in there. On the other side of A Street, just to the north, you've got 2 blocks of state property that will be developed into residential and mixed use. You also have the property on Ash Street that we're hoping to convert from office space to affordable housing. And of course, you have the Campus at Horton project 2 blocks south of us on the other side of Broadway. There is a lot of terrific revitalization that is underway here. This block with the City Operations Building and Fire Station 1 is perfectly positioned to be a part of that revitalization. So it would not make sense to move forward with a permanent homeless shelter there while we're exploring these other uses. Both of the other 2 recommended sites are in better locations. The old Central Library is close to where I live. I'm very familiar with the area. It's a good location. We know it's a good location because it has already been used as a homeless shelter off and on over the past couple of years, and it's been just fine. It has certainly been better than the encampments that once surrounded it and the post office across the street. The city owns the property, so we don't have to worry about acquisitions or leases. The issue with the old Central Library is that the existing building is in bad shape. If we want to make it a permanent shelter and something that can hold more than 40 beds, you're going to have to either rebuild it from within or knock it down and build something else. It has a historic facade, so you'd want to preserve that. You'd build some other building behind it. Now, I have always thought that we could do a lot with this site, perhaps in some sort of a public-private partnership. Not only can you have shelter there, you can have affordable housing there. You can have permanent supportive housing. You could have an SRO there. Remember that you don't have height limits here the way that you do in other parts of the city. There is a lot of good that we can do at that site, and it is just sitting vacant right now. So I would like to look at what the possibilities are for that site that would make sense from a financial perspective at a time when the city's budget deficit currently limits its resources. As for the 3rd recommended option on 2nd Avenue, that location could also work. It requires little in the way of tenant improvements. It's a smaller site. It may be one that we could get into within a year and perhaps at a lower cost. So I'd like to find out more about that option too. So I will make a motion with apologies to the independent budget analyst, because I know this is a very busy time of the year for you, but I think you are instrumental in this process. I will make a motion to request that the independent budget analyst work with city department staff and the city attorney's office and report back to the city council on how these 2 sites, the old Central Library and the 2nd Avenue site, could be financed and what the city's costs would be over 30 years. Thank you, Council President.
I also want to agree with Councilmember Elo Rivera's comments with Councilmember Whitburn. You are always welcome, always welcoming people to have shelter in the district, and you have worked harder on this issue than anyone, and I want to thank you for that. It's also not easy. I appreciate the creativity here and looking at all options. I don't think we should pursue any of the city-owned options. Cobb is falling apart at best, and there's a reason we're moving all of the employees out of there. I've seen Cobb. It is a terrible building. And the downtown library, I'm just very confused about how it would cost $86 million. Alif, I hear you. It's an old building. There's lead. There's asbestos. Also to engineering capital projects, you guys do great work. I would prefer that you keep working on the other CIPs that we need in the city. I would prefer the engineering capital projects works on our new fire stations that we need and rebuilding the roof at Scripps Ranch Library and all of the AC overlay we need for our roads. And so, Elif, I know you're incredibly busy, so thank you for taking time out to work on this. But I just don't think the strategy of having the city rehab old, dilapidated buildings is cost-effective or a good use of our time. I also want to know where the county is. And where the Regional Task Force on Homelessness is. They get awarded so much money, the Regional Task Force on Homelessness, and they do a great job with diversion and getting people rental subsidies, but I think they need to be doing more. The city of San Diego has single-handedly put up enough shelter to house thousands of people a night. Other cities around us have depended on us to do this for years. The county has depended on us to do this for years, and now the city can't afford this anymore. I'm very confused as to why we're even here right now. I watched the budget committee hearing from last week. We have a huge financial gap. And so I feel bad that we have tasked our important staff with going down this inquiry when we do not have the money to be doing this. I'd prefer that the Housing Commission, who also has no time and a very limited budget, but is very good at these things, be able to take some of this off your plate. I really wish that the Regional Task Force on Homelessness could come and present to us about what they're doing to get people off the street when we have done so much as a city already, and we really need the county to start working on this, especially since Prop 1 passed in March of 2024. They are required by law to use our taxpayer money, and the county has our money to provide housing and homelessness, especially for veterans and for homeless individuals. So I think that's the route we should be looking at. I will not be supporting these items today because we do not have the money to do this. And I really want us to look at other folks. That said, we are in a crisis, and Councilmember Whitburn is right. We do not have enough shelter as a region for the folks who need it. I just think we really need to be pivoting and having these conversations with other partners who have not done half the lift that the city of San Diego has over the past years. We've addressed the hepatitis A outbreak on our own. We did a lot of work with other outbreaks on our own. And so it's time for us to start relying on our partners more and not always try and take up the mantle for them. So thank you again for the great work you do. I appreciate you, and I will be voting no.
Good afternoon, Francine Maxwell, District 4. I want to alert the council that the community will be banding together again as we voted 75% November of 2020 for independence on Measure B. The chair of public safety wants to take us backwards and give the council more control based on a former cop's letter after he resigned as the executive director of CPP. The club in San Diego is led by a retired FBI agent. And so do we see what oversight is becoming in the city of San Diego if you allow the chair to do what she wants to do? Please believe that we need 25 individuals trusted so that we can make quorum in case people are sick and on vacation, something happens in their family. We haven't even fully matured as a CPP. She is listening to a person that should have only been there 1 year, former CRB member, who is now the interim chair, who wants San Diego to look like San Francisco, but we don't have the money like San Francisco for oversight. So please pay attention and continue to support the 75% residents that voted for true independence, true oversight of San Diego Police Department. Do not let a letter that was written by somebody that did not want to be told what to do in this season by individuals that the community trusts as our trusted messengers to be oversight for the 8th largest city police department. Again, please keep your eyes open on Wednesday for the power move that is trying to be had on the residents. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Before I start, I did not understand the last item fully. I hope I can get some clarity on it. I did not know where we ended up with Central, Old Central. I just didn't get it. Okay, so here we go. This is a letter to our Governor Newsom. Dear Governor, sending love and thoughts of well-being to you and your family. Thank you for meeting recently with President Trump and members of Congress on both parties. That's the kind of excellent work you do for the people of California. Holistic communications, coordination, and collaboration in these times must always be a priority. I have a request for you, Governor. AI, artificial intelligence, is exploding in California. We have all the resources to meet the technology of that explosion, yet the people of California need you to guide us through what is beginning to impact our daily lives. We need you. We need your wisest leadership, your most courageous leadership to help this transition of evolutionary change that, excuse me, have the so that you can do proper ethics, protection systems, and equity. I'm losing my voice. I don't know why. So anyway, we don't want to pull the reins too tight. The reins are in your hands, Governor Newsom. So please help us with ethics, protection, systems, and equity in regards to AI, artificial intelligence. Sincerely yours, Joy Sunyata. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Love to all.
I wanted to remind you all, after listening to the report today on the millions of unanticipated expenses to deal with homelessness, that people who own often half a dozen or more short-term vacation rentals in San Diego are essentially house hoarding at a time of extreme housing crisis. They are displacing thousands of San Diegans from full-time housing, and that's what's contributing to the millions of dollars of expenses that you are struggling to budget for, that you discussed today, and you've discussed at numerous other meetings throughout the year. You know, this is not something difficult to see the direct impact of these short-term rentals. And meanwhile, a council committee reported last year that over 1,700 complaints were filed by unpaid residents. So people who live next to these short-term rentals and see the problems are on the hook to report it. And the investigators who are working on this that are paid are overwhelmed. And the Department of Development Services had to transfer 2 additional staff to manage complaints during peak summer season. So what I'm trying to explain is you have an opportunity to start charging a realistic cost recovery fee for short-term vacation rentals, or ideally make it so people have to reconsider being in the business of taking homes away from full-time residents, which results in millions of dollars in costs and thousands of people displaced from housing. And meanwhile, the program is not paying for itself. So as you discuss the budget, as you discuss priorities, look very seriously at how much of this over-tourism communities can take in housing that was originally evaluated to be part of your regional housing need assessment, and then act accordingly. Thank you.